2023 49ers season preview. It's Super Bowl bust. It's as simple as that. The 49ers have only one goal, it's to win the Super Bowl. And it's been that way for seasons. They really have a 2-year window to get it done, and they have squandered opportunities. They have let beautiful opportunities where it's been right there slip away. The Super Bowl 54 against the Chiefs. It was there. They should have won. 2021 against the Rams, the team they owned. They lost the most important game. 2022. Brock Purdy gets injured on their first possession, and it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And maybe they would not have won that game. I'm of the opinion the 49ers would have won that game, but would have lost in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs again. The pressure's on, and the pressure's on Kyle Shanahan, and people take different sides with Shanahan. They either think he's done a tremendous job, or they believe he is, on the other side, nothing more than really a glorified offensive coordinator. He is great at designing plays, calling plays, but he's not a great head coach. Now, I think we got to be patient with Shanahan. That's how I feel. That he's done very well while he's been head coach, because even looking at the other great coaches the 49ers have had, putting Bill Walsh aside, George Seifert inherited a great team. Mariucci also inherited a great team, and Jim Harbaugh inherited already a talented team that was mishandled. Shanahan had to build it all the way up from nothing. And I'm not saying he's better than Seifert, I'm not. But he's had to build it from nothing. And the 49ers are now a team that is no longer a laughingstock. We were a laughingstock. Between Mariucci and Harbaugh, we were a laughingstock. And it was just plain embarrassing between Harbaugh and Shanahan, where what was supposed to be NFL royalty, we were an embarrassment. And I was embarrassed as a 49er fan. And whatever you want to say about Shanahan, at least we're right there. We are right there among the best teams in the league. And it's a golden opportunity. It's 49ers, it's a golden opportunity. Rarely do you have this much talent at once. A collection of this much talent on both sides of the ball. Just look at the contracts they've handed out. I believe they have the most talented roster in the whole NFL. And when you're looking at, and we'll look at the individual positions here in the preview. We'll scan through the schedule too, rapido. And the question is, with that much talent, that's great, but can you win without having one of the premier quarterbacks? It's very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult based on history in the modern NFL, unless you get someone who is just on a roll and on fire, such as a Joe Flacco in 2012. And we know that too well, don't we, as 49er fans? Or Peyton Manning at the end of his career, or Tom Brady at the end of their career. But we're talking about Hall of Fame quarterbacks. You need to win. Generally, the rule is you have to win with a top 10 quarterback in the league, if not a top 5 quarterback in the league. Or you have to just have everything go right if you don't. Look at the past Super Bowl winners. That's usually the formula. And there's a lot of pressure on Shanahan because of what happened with Trey Lance. And the question is, and we just don't know yet about Brock Purdy. I think he's superior to Jimmy Garoppolo in just about every way, other than experience. You gotta love what you've seen from him. But Shanahan, does he have the right quarterback? He's under pressure from the organization, the fan base. He's in the shadow, and he has the expectations of being a Shanahan. He's the son of Mike Shanahan, who won 2 Super Bowls. But the thing about Mike Shanahan was he had John Elway. He had one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. There just aren't many comps to John Elway, are there? You look at Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's compared to Shanahan often. He didn't win anything until he got Patrick Mahomes. He got far. He had Donovan McNabb, who was a very good quarterback. He'd put him in the Hall of Very Good, Donovan McNabb, but Patrick Mahomes is widely considered by many to already be an all-time great quarterback. At least talent-wise, maybe the most talented person to ever play the position. He's had such success over such a small period of time. I mean, he has all the skills, but he also has the physical skills, the leadership, the intangibles. Things are just immeasurable. They go beyond what you would look for at the combine. Going back to his father, Mike Shanahan, he had Terrell Davis too. And in all fairness, as good as Elway was, they didn't win either until they had Terrell Davis. And I love Terrell Davis, but he should not be in the Hall of Fame. His career was too short, and I loved watching him too. I did. But that career was too short to be in the Hall of Fame. And have you seen the way, though, he's aged? Damon Bruce has brought this up, and I agree with him. He is aged like a president, Kyle Shanahan. And you have to forgive me if I call Kyle Mike. It's just what happens. I'll try not to. It's like the Bosa brothers. I mean, wow. I know they both have the same number, but are they ever mixed up? I don't really hear it happen with Joey, but Nick is called Joey so often. Maybe that won't happen as much this season. But can they get it done this year? Can they get it done? And what's frustrating is that you feel like when you look at the roster, and we're going to shift into the roster now, that they've had the best roster. In 19, I was fully convinced they had the best roster and lost the Super Bowl. In 2020, I think they had the best roster. Then they had all the injuries. 21, 22. I think for 4 straight seasons, the 49ers have had the best roster in football. I think there's some argument that you can make and some debate with the Eagles, but those are the 2 most talented all-around rosters. But the thing that we've had to learn the hard way, is because the NFL is the way it is, it's so much about offense and it's all about the quarterback, and the rules are made that way, that if you have the better quarterback, that will often trump and overcome the better all-around roster, even the team with the better defense. If you do not have a quarterback that's close to that superior quarterback, and it's put the 49ers in a very difficult position. Even going back to the Harbaugh years, as talented as Kaepernick was, you were usually facing quarterbacks who were superior. I mean, even with Aaron Rodgers, they really beat Aaron Rodgers, but then you had to go up against Russell Wilson. You had to go up against a team who had a defense that was equal to you, and it's hard to string along consecutive playoff wins against teams who have better quarterbacks. And when you had to say, well, we got to go through Aaron Rodgers, then we have to go through Russell Wilson, and a very physical team. And it didn't end up happening, but they may have ended up facing Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, and you ran into that, of course, now in 19. Let's use the 19 example. You had to go through Rodgers, and you had to go through Mahomes. It's a tall task, and it's actually a better example. In 19, in 21, it was difficult because I'm not going to compliment the Cowboys ever more than I have to, but Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, and you had to go through Aaron Rodgers. and then you had to go through Stafford. You were in a difficult spot in all three of those games. You were at a disadvantage because you had the inferior quarterback. It's just the truth. And then last season, well, that's hard to judge, isn't it? We're talking about Geno Smith and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts against Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy's still so much of an unknown. You know, it's a very unusual situation with the 49ers because, and this goes back before my time, is usually you'd always have the better quarterback. Whether it's Joe Montana or Steve Young in the playoffs or for a Super Bowl run. You know, I talked about going back to, and Alex Smith's a better example of this than Colin Kaepernick even, but you had to go through Drew Brees and you had to go through Eli Manning, and then if you advanced, you would have had to go through Tom Brady. You were in a very difficult situation there, having to win with defense in an offensive era. You know, in 2012, as I was saying, with Kaepernick now, you had to go through Rodgers, and you did. You got through Rodgers, but then you had to get through Matt Ryan, and those quarterbacks were both better at that time than Kaepernick. And then Flacco was hotter, and then in 13, you had Rodgers, Cam Newton, and Russell Wilson. That's what you were up against. And we'll see this year, you know, are we ever going to be at an advantage at quarterback with Brock Purdy? And let's just start talking about Brock Purdy. Why do I like Brock Purdy? Is he's a competitor. He's tough. He's undersized. He's an underdog. I believe he can make the throws that he needs to on the field. He's accurate. He's smart. He's a leader. He's more athletic than people get him credit for. He sees the field well. He's decisive. He just makes good decisions. He has pocket presence. I mean, these are the things you want out of your quarterback that I think Garoppolo lacked. And as good as Kaepernick was as an athlete and having a superior arm, he could not check off a number of those boxes. Alex Smith obviously could not check off a number of those boxes. Is it sustainable? That's the question. You know, Larry Krueger's brought up in the offseason. Is it sustainable? He believes it is. I believe it is. He played in such a few number of games last year, but he never lost, right? He never lost as a starter. The only loss he had, and he won 2 playoff games. That counts for something, doesn't it? And the only game you could mark as a loss, if I'm not mistaken, he only was active before his injury. Well, he got injured on the 3rd play of the game. That was it. So it's hard to even put it down as a loss to Brock Purdy's record. And it's the great question going into this season. How good can he be? Is it sustainable? Is he going to get better in year 2, considering, you know, he didn't have a regular off season? I was happy to see him play in preseason. His body type, again, undersized. We didn't get to see him, you know, really throw it down the field in preseason, but we did get to see him make the shorter intermediate throws. And if he's like the quarterback he was last year and he can be consistent, then we got a great chance of getting to the Super Bowl. And even winning the Super Bowl. I believe that. But it's really, in so many ways, an unknown. We'll just have to wait and see as the season goes on. And we can make our predictions all we want. It's time to see it on the field. Sam Darnold, I believe, was the right choice to be the backup, not Trey Lance. He's not spectacular, but at this point, he's a professional quarterback, and he's more ready to step in than Trey Lance would be. And I'm hoping this is the last time I'm going to bring up Trey Lance for a very, very long time. The deepest position on the team is running back. Christian McCaffrey. I thought he was a very good player before coming to the 49ers, but honestly, it's not like I'm watching a lot of Panthers football. I mean, I remember seeing him in the games against the 49ers and being impressed, and sure, highlights. But when you get to see him every single week, plus you put him on a talented roster like this, wow. He is a very special player. As a running back, as a receiver, he does it all. And that's another reason why the 49ers got to make the most of this window, is because he's right there in his prime. And the running back's primes are not long. And we can go on and on about all this and do a preview and break down all the positions and the depth charts. Can we stay healthy? Right? Can you stay healthy? And that was one of the great frustrations to me last season. And even going back to 21, because of what happened in 20, was you, for the most part, had a healthy roster and you didn't get it done with the most talented team. And you didn't protect your quarterback. We'll get that to the offensive line. Jordan Mason, to me, is the number 2 running back. I mean, powerful running back. He really came on at the end of the regular season. Then you have Ty Davis-Price, who's a similar body, but not as good as Mason. But he is interesting. He's also a very physical, powerful runner. Very different style than McCaffrey. And then finally, Elijah Mitchell, who's almost become an afterthought. And I like Mitchell. I like Mitchell a lot when he's on the field, when he's healthy. He's very good, but he's fragile. He's a delicate player out there, and I just don't think you can trust him. That's the problem with him. And you need depth at running back, and hopefully they stay healthy. They got 4 guys there. They got 4, I think, good running backs. You got 1 great running back, and you got 1, I think, above average running back when healthy, and Elijah Mitchell. And we can't forget about Kyle Juszczyk at fullback. I mean, he's so valuable. He's one of the smartest players on the team. He's a great blocker. He, in some ways, can be used as a second tight end. He can pick up a first down here and there when you hand it off to him. Talk about maybe the most underrated player on the entire roster. I know it's not a fullback league right now. There are very few fullbacks, but he plays it traditionally, and he plays it well. He earns those Pro Bowl honors. He really does. Offensive line, well, I think the criticism of the offensive line is you have Trent Williams, who's an all-time great tackle, and the rest of the guys are nothing special. They're very average. I tend to agree with that, and the concern is right tackle. McKivitz was not a fan of Mike McGlinchey at all. And I'm glad they let him go. Do I think he was the worst? No, but he left a lot to be desired when it came to pass blocking. I mean, he was taken advantage of by many edge rushers. Pretty good run blocker, I'd give him that. Not a great tackle at protecting his quarterback. Average, he's average at best. And I was like, Broncos are seriously giving a big deal to him? Really? Okay. And that's going to be a big deal week 1 is, okay, TJ Watt is not going to go one-on-one versus Trent Williams. It's not happening. And will they protect their quarterback? And that's one of the major criticisms and faults of Kyle Shanahan. It's absolutely fair that he has not done good enough protecting his quarterbacks. His quarterbacks get hurt. in a league that wants your quarterback to stay healthy. Doesn't want to see quarterbacks getting hurt. It's bad for the game, yet the 49ers have a knack of, and a bad habit of, getting their quarterbacks hurt. And I don't think they've invested enough in their offensive line either. That is true. They have not invested, and now that they have more draft picks next year, I'd like to see them commit to investing in the offensive line. I'm not going to do a breakdown of all the players on the O-line. I'm not. Go to Kruger for that. Let's talk about the weapons. Wide receiver. And this is a fun group. It's a dynamic group when you're already talking about Christian McCaffrey, because Christian McCaffrey's more than a running back. He's also a receiver. But number one receiver is Deebo Samuel. Will he have a bounce back year? I sure hope he does. He needs to have a bounce back year, Deebo. And all indications are that he's very motivated. He's in shape. He looked slow last year. I mean, he coughed one up at the start of the Bears game, the first game of the year. That was bad. And he still had some good moments. He still had some big plays, like against the Rams, for instance. The Monday night game here, great game. That was like a 2021 Deebo Samuel game. He had a great game in the playoffs against the Seahawks. He did. I don't think we're going to see the 2021 Deebo again, but it would be nice to see something closer to that than 2022. I mean, I'm prepared, and this seems negative, but I think we've seen the very best of Deebo Samuel already. I do. I don't think we're going to see another season like we did in 21, but at least if he's closer to that player, that'd mean good things for the 49ers. And I don't need to see him used as a running back. Very sparingly. Use him on, wide receiver screens, quick passes. I don't want to see him getting tackled by defensive linemen and getting blown up by linebackers. Get him out in space and let him go. Don't put him at risk of injury. And two, that's the same thing with Christian McCaffrey. If it's, 3rd and 1, 3rd and inches, get one of the power backs in there. Get Mason in there. Get Ty Davis Price in there. Don't use McCaffrey for that. You need to think about the whole season and protect your guys. And split up the carries appropriately. Ayuk is the best receiver on the team, and he is a better route runner than Deebo. He's more of a traditional receiver. He's one of the most underrated receivers in football. He's smooth. He's not the most exciting. He's not necessarily like a guy who's going to be putting a great highlight reel together, but he's just so solid. He's just so good, and we kind of take him for granted. Everyone's expecting a huge year out of him, and he's in a contract season. He's coming up to it is a contract season for him. Juwan Jennings is number 3. Will it be Ronnie Bell? They're right there as the 3rd and 4th receivers. I think they're good options as 3rd and 4th receivers. Tight ends, George Kittle. Finally, they got him the ball and made a priority to get him the ball, which I was very pleased about. And Brock Purdy had great chemistry with him, because I'm always the guy yelling on Sundays or in the playoffs, especially the playoffs, get Kittle the ball. You have too many weapons to not get him the ball. It's not like they're just focusing in on him when you have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and you have McCaffrey. I mean, after the catch, he's as good as it gets. I don't think there's any tight end in football that's better, including Travis Kelce, after the catch. Not the best route runner, but when he gets the ball, he's good. But then what's after? But then again, injuries with Kittle. I mean, is he even going to play in the first game? I don't know. And then when you have... what do you have behind him? That's the question. What do you have behind George Kittle? Backup tight end has been a consistent problem for the 49ers. So that's the offense. It has the potential to be a great offense. They put up big points with Brock Purdy. Can they do the same thing this year? Let's talk defense. And where else would you start other than Nick Bosa, the reigning Defensive Player of the Year? He is the guy. And there are very good players on this defense. Fred Warner's an all-pro. Hargrave is an excellent defensive tackle. Hufanga ended up being a breakout player last year. Ward was very solid at corner. But Nick Bosa is the guy, and the great news for the 49ers is he's signed, he's ready to go, and I'm excited to see what kind of a season he has. I mean, just as long as he has a season that's comparable between 21 and 22, we're in for a big year from Nick Bosa. He's one of the most impactful players on either side of the ball in the game. And that defensive line, the front seven especially, is the strength of the 49ers defense. I mean, Bosa commands so much attention. He was the closer on defense. He's good against the pass, obviously one of the very best, if not the best. And then he's very solid against the run. Next to him you have Arik Armstead, who we have a little difficulty sometimes with Armstead. You know, he was a first-round pick, and I say he's been a good 49er, but we end up usually comparing him to DeForest Buckner, and everyone wished the 49ers would have chosen to keep DeForest Buckner over Arik Armstead. You know, Armstead is a very unique player. If you just look at his physical build, I mean, 6'7", like Buckner, 6'7", primarily playing on the inside. You can't always go by the stats because he's often double teamed. He does make things easier for Nick Bosa, but sometimes you would like to see a few more sacks out of him. If I'm not mistaken, he didn't actually register a sack until the playoffs last year. But he's a good player. He is a good player. Make no mistake about it. And he's a very important part of the defense. Then there's Hargrave, who, from what I've heard and know, it was Jody Mack on the national CBS show, who knows Eagles football. He said, great pass rusher on the inside. But if he has a weakness, he's not that great of a run defender. We'll see how much that's a factor in week one. Because you know the Steelers are going to want to run the ball. 49ers did not defend the run well at all in the preseason. It's the preseason. And finally, Drake Jackson, who was a second-round pick from last year. He had his moments as a rookie, but he lost playing time. At the end of the season, in the playoffs, he didn't see much action. So can Drake Jackson be more of an action Jackson this year? Can he be that complimentary edge rusher to Nick Bosa? I mean, he has the athleticism. There's no question about that. Can he get to the quarterback? Can he get to the quarterback with any consistency? Because when you're looking at defensive end, there is not much depth there. You got Austin Bryant, you got Cleveland Farrell. Kerry Hyder still in the mix. That's not the line you had last year. And, you know, talking about the defense, let me back up. We're talking about the change at defensive coordinator. This is not DeMeco Ryans anymore. It's Steve Wilks, and he's more known as a defensive coordinator who's willing to bring pressure, bring extra guys, blitz more. And, this even goes back to the Harbaugh years. The 49ers usually have liked to stay with more of a just four-man front and sparingly blitz. And that's been true regardless of who's been the D coordinator for the 49ers. Sparingly blitz, and the ideal is we'll get pressure with the front four. So I am very interested to see how that plays out. Even in the first week, will they bring Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw more? I've wanted to see that. I want to see that in the old days with Willis and Bowman. Bring a little more pressure. You have to beat the great quarterbacks without blitzing very much. Just look at it. If you're going to beat Tom Brady, that's how you had to do it. Was you couldn't blitz him. You had to get to him with four. Another thing the 49ers have done is, and I didn't like this with Saleh or Ryans, they would take out all the starting defensive linemen or the big pass rushers at once. And then you would see the defense just give up big yards, and you'd see the quarterback get very comfortable. I hope they don't do that under Wilks. If you want to rest one guy, you want to take Bosa out of the lineup for a moment, or one of the others, fine. But don't take multiple guys out for a drive or a possession. It's just a bad strategy, and it's backfired many times. But health's going to be very important on defensive line because of the lack of depth. And you wonder, with the space they opened up on the salary cap with some of these restructured deals, is will they bring in another edge rusher? That's what they've talked about. Brian Burns, Chase Young. There is a need. Even Chandler Jones. There is a need for another guy. Let's talk linebackers. Well, for linebackers, you're primarily going to see on the field two linebackers. I'm not going to really comment on the other guys because we just need to see them on the field and see what they do. Al-Shaair is gone, but your two main guys, of course, are Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, and they're as good of a combo when you're in the nickel as anyone. And Fred Warner is about as good as it gets in coverage, sideline to sideline, intelligent, excellent tackler. Again, not asked very much to come in and rush the quarterback, but he is the modern linebacker. And I've gone back and forth a little because we've seen such great middle linebacker play in San Francisco over the last 10 to 15 years with Willis and Bowman and Fred Warner. Where does Fred Warner fit in? He's not as dynamic as those other two. He doesn't have as many highlight reel plays. His style's very different. They were very physical players, Willis and Bowman, and hey, that was part of the reason why they got injured as they did. He's more of a smooth player, very smooth with the way he plays. Not so much a crushing hitter. I mean, he'll have some hits, but I mean, remember the play where he was covering CeeDee Lamb down the field in the divisional game against the Cowboys? That was incredible. It really was. He had a great game against the Cowboys all the way around. And I feel very good with Fred Warner. I mean, there's no one else I'd want to have right now in the modern game to play middle linebacker. And it's a hard position to play. I mean, it's a position that's being devalued. You want to talk about running back being devalued in the NFL. The 49ers make a lot of it. But when you say middle linebacker, because it's all about getting pressure on the quarterback. So if you can be as valuable as Fred Warner, that speaks volumes. Being a player whose responsibility is tackling running backs, playing back in coverage, leading the defense, oh, you're good. You're very good. And then on the other side next to him, you talk about Dre Greenlaw. His style is very different. He's faster, actually, than Warner. And Warner's an excellent athlete. But Greenlaw's even faster. He is a more physical, big hitter. And health's been a problem. When he's been on the field, he's very good. And he took his game to another level last year. He took his game to another level. I would like to see him brought more because he's got speed. That means they bring him off the edge. They bring him more as a fifth man and leave Warner in coverage. Hey, I think it's something that really would work. Then there's the secondary. And the secondary for me is always concerning. And this goes back to my whole life as a 49ers fan. I'm always concerned about cornerback. Okay, I started following the 49ers right when Deion Sanders left. Eric Davis left. And what did you have? You had players like Marcus Pope and Tyrone Drakeford. And it's an area of concern. It's such a difficult position to play because everything's against you in the NFL quarterback. The quarterback's protected, the receivers are protected. As we said, all you have to do is just breathe on a receiver and you're going to get a flag thrown. Well, Ward was an excellent pickup. Chardavius Ward, not Jimmy Ward. He was an excellent pickup last year. He had a especially strong start. He struggled a little bit more at times at the end of the season. I mean, he had a couple of bad games. Overall, he was playing at a very high level, and even Greg Pop, I remember saying, in his opinion, probably played the best number one corner for the 49ers since Deion Sanders. I'm confident when he's on there, out there as the number one guy. And then you look at Lenore as the second corner, and then you're looking at the nickel corner positions. That's where I'm more concerned. You have the younger players out there, and sometimes young corners have a good season and then they just fall apart. And they're going to be challenged right away in Pittsburgh, believe me, they are. So we're going to see where they stand at corner early in week 1. Again, that's just me. I'm always concerned about cornerback. Safety, I actually feel better about safety than cornerback. I want to start with Gibson last year. What a great signing he was. So many big interceptions. And then, Hufanga stepped up. And as much as Hufanga, he played better than expected. He had a lot of highlight reel, eye-catching plays. I feel he's a little overrated. And I'm saying that as a 49ers fan. He's made his mistakes in coverage and some bad mistakes playing back in coverage. He'll make some outstanding plays coming up into the box. It's not that he can't come up with plays. He had his interceptions. Just remember the Rams game here, the Monday night game. What a finish that was. But his play level of play went down as the season went on. And we're seeing, early on, let's see how he does and if he's going to get back to more of that level he was at the start of the year. But he was a little exposed. then how much action and playing time will Jair Brown get? He's kind of like a younger Gibson. He's not going to impress you with speed, but a smart player. A smart player who's usually around the football. How about special teams? I don't know about special teams, and special teams has been something of a concern for many years. Now that Robbie Gould is not here, the place kicking, field goal kicking duties were going to be left to the rookie, Jake Moody. But then he got hurt, and the latest report is that he is going to play. There was some question the 49ers brought other kickers in. I'm just seeing this right now that Kyle Shanahan 2 hours ago is confident Moody will be the 49ers kicker for a long time, and he is supposed to be, using their words from NBC Sports, good for the opener. We'll see. And it looks like Ronnie Bell is going to get some time as the kick returner. Special teams, that's another area. I feel like cornerback, secondary, and special teams always make me very uneasy with the 49ers. And even when they're solid, still concerned about special teams. So it's an excellent roster, but there are some areas that we'll just have to see with the young players and how they do. Now let's focus on week one. Getting into a week one preview. What are they up against in Pittsburgh? Previewing this first game between the 49ers and the Steelers, guess what is in the forecast that people are downplaying again? How slow people are to learn lessons from even the recent past. Rain, potential thunderstorms, and right now I'm seeing a 50% chance of rain. I don't like it. Honestly, I don't like it. I wasn't feeling good about this game coming into this game. That the 49ers get off to slow starts. This is Brock Purdy's first opener, and now we're throwing rain in there. And the Steelers are coming in confident, let me tell you. Well, let's just take the matchups. What are the key matchups when the 49ers are on offense versus the Steelers defense? Well, it starts with blocking TJ Watt, who is as good as it gets. You know, we talk about Bosa and Watt. Those are the best pass rushers in football facing off. And he, as I've already said, he's not going to line up against Trent Williams. He is going to test McKivitz at right tackle, and he's going to go to work there. You're really looking at three great defenders. You got Highsmith on the other end, who'll be a matchup against Trent Williams, and then Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I think these corners can be attacked. Porter Jr. and Patrick Peterson. Debo and Ayuk, as long as it's playable and it's not a downpour, they should have good games. If George Kittle is playing, I don't know how effective he can be. Sounds like it's going to be a game time decision. I would think he would have a good game too. I do think it's a situation where you're going to have to get the ball out and get the ball out fast, because you're going to have pressure on Purdy and run the ball. Christian McCaffrey, the first guy I think I heard bring this up was Guy Haberman, was putting out the idea, how about McCaffrey as MVP? And wouldn't it be great for the league if we had a non-quarterback as MVP? I mean, it should just be called the MVQ at this point, most valuable quarterback, right? Because the quarterback by default now is always the most important player out there. I think you can have a big mismatch, and honestly, in just about every game, I could say the same thing. You have a big mismatch with McCaffrey on third downs as a receiver. It's going to be a physical game. Larry Krueger called this the most physical game on the 49ers schedule. The Steelers like to hit, the 49ers like to hit. I think the Steelers certainly are well coached, and they have a couple, as we've said, outstanding defensive players. But some of these younger players, and I think their secondary outside of Fitzpatrick, can be attacked. And how good are they at linebacker, really? They're average, are they not? 49ers should be able to put up points in this one. On defense, I'm a little concerned at corner because Pickett, well, he looked very good in preseason. Let's face it, he did not have a great rookie season. He played a little better at the end of the season. He looked very sharp in preseason. Again, let's just say that you're going to have a clear day, but most likely this is not ideal conditions. But I think he's going to test the 49ers corners because he's got two receivers. He's got Pickett to Pickens, and then he has Deontay Johnson. So he's got two improving young receivers who are very skilled. And then you got Najee Harris, who in my opinion he's a little overrated. He is. He definitely racks up the statistics and the yardage, but his average is it's average. It's not special. He's a tough back. And who's going to win in the trenches? I mean, it comes down to this because you got two second-year quarterbacks. Who's going to win up front? I see the 49ers should be able to win in both cases. Their offensive line should be able to push the Steelers front, and I expect them to be able to run the ball effectively. And I think the Steelers are gonna try and make Brock Purdy beat them with intermediate to deep passes. I don't know if the 49ers will have to, though. If they can run the ball effectively and, they can get Debo in screens and pick apart some of the weak spots for the Steelers defense, I think they should win up front and have a balanced attack. Why can't they not have a balanced attack against the Steelers? And their defensive line, they need to be good against the run. Do not let the Steelers get going early on the ground game and make Pickett uncomfortable. And you have the guys to do that with Bosa and Hargrave and hopefully Drake Jackson. And again, will we see some more blitzes dialed up against the young quarterback? Don't let them get confidence early. But here's another lesson from last season. If it's a bad weather game, score early, get a lead. Don't let the home team hang around. Put some distance between you and them and get off to a good start. My goodness, get off to a good start. No more slow starts. Win this first game and don't settle for field goals. Get touchdowns, especially with the field goal situation, the kicking situation. Just play a clean game of special teams. We don't need anything spectacular, just a clean game. And don't turn the football over, right? On the road, don't turn the football over. Don't play sloppy, play mistake-free, even be a little more conservative. But don't settle. Get touchdowns. Don't have a repeat of what happened to the Bears game. And if they can do those things, win at the line of scrimmage, make Pickett uncomfortable, score first, score early, and have a balanced attack, 49ers should win. And they have the better team. They should win. I'm going to say 49ers 28, Steelers 17.